Peace and love, family, peace and love. So today's video is going to be about how cacao is very beneficial to your PMS symptoms. If you're really struggling on your menstrual cycle, I was raised around women. I grew up around women. Majority of my relationships were with women, non-sexually, platonic, of course. And I'm very aware, I guess, gifted as a man, to understand the experiences that women go through when that time of the month comes and the symptoms that come from it. I've seen one woman who has no PMS symptoms, still has her menstrual cycle, an older woman, and she enlightened me on this and made it really intriguing. And I know women who don't have it that bad, as they would say. And then I know some women who it would completely cripple and debilitate them. So, wherever you are on the spectrum, I think that this video with cacao would be very beneficial. So to start it out, I would like to educate. I find that educating people allows the information to assimilate better rather than me just saying this is good, this is a little bit why, and just take it. So therefore, if you do fall off the horse and you're not taking it as frequently, or you go through a lot of things in life and you use that as an excuse as to not take care of yourself, which is a little counterintuitive, you have the information that would be recalled to you at the time that you need it most, not just me in your ear saying you need to take this, right? So, with that being said, there are other videos where I have explained PMS and its symptoms. I have explained what's in your blood. So if you've already watched that in that video, you can skip to the part where I just explained what the benefits are for the PMS symptoms. But right now in this part of the video, I would like you to either take a note to Google later, or you can Google along the way. I think you can, this is on YouTube, so you can kind of like swipe and go look at it. Or depending on where you're looking at this, you might not be able to. But I want you to Google PMS symptoms and educate yourself. Go through all of the lists of the PMS symptoms and also go to the images and you'll find more depictions of the symptoms and it'll give you a better understanding. That will really make this information assimilate better. So I want you to go to Healthline because that's what I'm using. And we're going to go through the PMS symptoms here. So emotional and behavioral symptoms. PMS related changes in your mood, emotions, and behavior might include anxiety, restlessness, or feeling on edge, unusual anger and irritability, changes in appetite, including increased food cravings, especially for sweets, changes in sleep patterns, including fatigue and trouble sleeping, a sad or low mood, which might involve tearfulness or sudden uncontrollable crying, rapid shifts in mood and emotional outbursts, decreased sex drive, difficulty concentrating or remembering information. Those are the emotional and behavioral symptoms. I would like to say it's also psychological because these things will have a direct impact on your psyche and your mindset and your way of thinking. I find that I'm not really attracted to women who typically have horrible menstrual cycles. It's an energy that can be felt because you're always going through a hormonal imbalance. In order to have PMS symptoms, your hormones are imbalanced. And if your hormones are imbalanced, me having well balanced hormones, we're not going to be able to align. We're going to have problems somewhere. The physical symptoms. With PMS, you'll likely also notice some physical symptoms such as abdominal bloating, cramping, sore and swollen breasts. I can't read today. Acne, constipation, diarrhea, headaches, back and muscle pain, unusual sensitivity to light or sound, unusual clumsiness. So disorientation. The clumsiness is neurological now. All right. So we went through emotional, behavioral, psychological and neurological. And of course, this is all hormonal. These are your PMS symptoms. Now, cacao specifically will help a lot with a portion of it, but I do have my detox mix and my herbal mix, that the green mix, that will really help you a ton. You use them in conjunction. But today we're just talking about the benefits of cacao. So another thing that I also want is for you to educate yourself in understanding what minerals you're losing when you're bleeding. So we're going to Google minerals in the blood, and then we're just going to round them off. We're going to say them off. Chromium, zinc, iron, sodium, magnesium, calcium. I don't know what this M word is. Molybdenum. I low-key think I spoke Arabic or Hebrew. Selenium, copper, and potassium. These are all of the minerals that you're losing, let alone water, and of course electrolytes, because electrolytes are potassium, they're sodium, and they're magnesium, amongst other things. So you're losing electrolytes. So if you're bleeding, especially if you're bleeding profusely, if you're bleeding at all, and I already experienced a woman who doesn't bleed and she has her menstrual cycle, so I know for a fact I've witnessed someone who doesn't bleed. When you study anatomy and you understand anatomy, it doesn't make sense as to why it's normalized to bleed. I guess it does make sense because of the fact that we live in a very toxic and unhealthy country in the world, essentially. So it makes sense why it's normalized, but you're not supposed to bleed. But the fact that you're losing these minerals. So we covered the PMS symptoms and we covered the minerals which you're losing. One thing I would also like to add in there, I don't remember if I did, iodine. That's very important to add in there. So the benefits of cacao is one of the highest forms of magnesium. It will alleviate the cramping that you have. So now let's get into the benefits of cacao for your PMS symptoms. Every mineral that I just named in this list is going to contribute to your PMS symptoms. You bleeding, whether it's profusely or just a little bit, means you lose vital minerals. It's in your blood. That's like the life force. It's the fluids of your body we're talking about here, and you're losing it. Whether it's a little bit or it's a lot, it makes a difference. And a lot of women bleed a lot. You're bleeding for 7 days, average, as I understand. Some women bleed less, but even bleeding for 3 days, bleeding for an entire day is a problem. You're bleeding out, essentially. You're actually not bleeding, you're hemorrhaging. So you're losing these minerals, and these are the symptoms that come from it. So if you look at any other ailments, your ailments is your bleeding, and these are the symptoms from bleeding. So I want you to think about it from that perspective. But with the cacao, it's highest in magnesium. What does that do for you, since that's one of the minerals that you're losing? It is very rich in magnesium, and magnesium and potassium put together will alleviate your cramps. Okay? It will allow your muscles to relax. Potassium is also a part of the electrolytes. Magnesium is part of the electrolytes. Sodium is part of the electrolytes. So you'll also notice that with the loss of sodium, you're not going to retain water. And if you're not getting enough salt, which you probably won't because you'll try to get it from carbs, so sugars and dairy and ice cream and anything that's really high and rich in carbs, you're going to go for that rather than the sodium, because you're not just trying to deal with the stress, you're trying to alleviate the pain that the stress is coming from, right? So with the potassium, with the magnesium in high amounts, it'll allow your body to not only be able to clot itself, but to get rid of the cramps. That is going to make a significant amount of difference in your system. Not only that, with the pain from the cramps lowering, the stress, your cortisol lowers, and your estrogen lowers. High estrogen will cause you to bleed a lot. I don't really have to have long conversations with women to know that their menstrual cycle is very chaotic. I don't really have to have a lot of conversations with women to know that a lot of their health issues is coming from bleeding profusely, even if you don't have pain, because it's also possible that you don't feel the cramps, even though you probably still have the cramps. You just don't feel them. That's a neurological issue. Now, remember what I said with the symptoms. The clumsiness, that's a nervous issue. So that means your nervous system is already compromised. If you're bleeding profusely, you are cramping somewhere, you just don't feel it. So magnesium is going to be very powerful for allowing that. Magnesium also helps with your moods. So it'll be able to give you a balance of your moods, of course, because of the estrogen and the other hormones. But cacao also has caffeine in it. It's going to put a little pep in your step. It's going to give you a little bit of energy. And one thing about caffeine, I don't really recommend a lot of people consume a lot of caffeine for long periods of time. But the one unique thing about cacao, the reason why you shouldn't consume a lot of caffeine is because the caffeine is going to make it that your body, your intestines can't absorb the magnesium. But it depends on how much caffeine you have. With cacao, it has significantly more levels of magnesium than it does caffeine. So if you're consuming a lot, let's say you're really going through it and you're like just racking it all in and you're now filled with caffeine, you have more magnesium in your body than the actual caffeine. All right. So that is what I low-key call a level of balance. So cacao will help. I find that all women should at least have a container of cacao sitting on the side if you don't want to take it frequently. If you know your cycle is coming, start taking it. If you know you're going through it, just in case, maybe I'm not going to be in that much pain, start taking it. If you know you're really in pain and you can't afford to call out, start taking it, especially if you know you have to go to work and you end up going to work. Start taking it. You should have it in your cabinet or your food pantry like you would Tylenol and aspirin in your mirror cabinet. You should always have it on hand, for women especially. Now, cacao, for the same reasons, is also beneficial for things like athletes because it allows you to rest. The magnesium relaxes your muscles. Another aspect of it, a lot of people don't know, the anemia, women feeling cold all the time. I find that very attractive, if unattractive. If you're cold all the time, the likelihood of me dating you consistently is not going to be something that I'm going to be open to, because temperature, regulating it, means a lot. Like, think about if we're sleeping together and you're always cold. And if you put your feet on me, I might black your eye. I'm just joking. But your inability to regulate your temperature is a rule. It's a deal breaker for me, right? Especially when I have the tools and the knowledge to help you with that. And if you're not willing to do that, then I'm just not willing to put up with everything that else that comes from it. But cacao isn't high in iron, but it is very, very high in copper. And a lot of people don't realize that copper is needed for iron to be processed. You need copper to process the iron. So when you're eating spinach and you're taking iron supplements and all these other things, without copper, you can't even process the iron. It's just going to go straight through your system. So that's another reason why cacao is super powerful. The balance between the copper and the magnesium will do wonders for you. Let me repeat that one more time. The balance and the high potency of copper and magnesium in cacao, amongst other minerals, because it got other minerals in it, is going to do wonders for you. I always recommend that you pair the cacao with the detox mix or my sea vegetable herbal mix or whatever products that I have. You can definitely ask and I'll let you know which products is best. But the detox mix, especially in the cacao, you use them in conjunction, they're going to work wonders because the detox mix and the herbal mix has all of these minerals that I just told you, except sodium in certain amounts. You're still going to need salt, but it has all of these minerals. And then on top of that, you're getting leaps and bounds of levels of magnesium in your system, and you won't have this problem. Of course, there's a bunch of other things you're going to need to do in order to balance and regulate your hormones, not just what you put in your body, but at least you won't have pain. At least you won't bleed for days. If anything, it would be light spotting over time, but you want to get to a point where it's a spotting of white coat, because when you are menstruating, it is just the lining, the uterus lining, which is mucus that's coming out. Bleeding is unnecessary. I'm not going to get into why you're bleeding in this video. I think this was long enough for you to understand the importance scientifically and anatomically of how cacao is very beneficial to you for alleviating and handling and managing your PMS symptoms, especially if you have fibroids, especially if you have PCOS or all the other hormonal diseases women suffer from. This is going to help you a lot. So why not help you? I'm always a firm believer, and I tell people all the time, whether you get this cacao from me or you get it from another source, as long as it's not cacao powder, get the nibs, grind it yourself, and then take it. So whether you get it from me or you get it from another source, just make sure you get it in your system. It makes no sense to be in pain and suffer unnecessarily. It makes no sense because now you're just causing this on your own. If you have any questions, or if you feel like I missed anything, or I've kind of sped past certain things, or you having any illness and you would like to book a consultation, definitely feel free to hit me up or book a consultation and we can get more into it. But this video pretty much covers exactly why cacao specifically is very, very beneficial to your PMS symptoms. So I hope this information helps. And until the next video, peace and love.